Shout out to Noster is a perfect segue to my talk. I'll tell you about a bunch of things that are mostly not ATproto. Thanks for the introduction. It's, what are we, an hour after lunch, mid-afternoon. Food coma is perfectly settling in just about now, right? I won't make you get up and do jumping jacks. For those of you who are dozing, I'll try to speak softly and let you keep sleeping. So, we heard a lot this morning from a number of different people about people, not platforms. Humanity and humane tech, not just tech. People, not platforms is my partner at Anu Social. Anuj's kind of motto has been for years. So, I'm up here. I'm going to be foolish and naive and ignore all of that and follow Dan's lead and tell you just about tech for 15 minutes. What could go wrong? You have heard these two viewpoints before. We already have a protocol. Why are we stop making new protocols? We got one. Or, there are so many great protocols, let's make more. I'm not going to litigate that, but I think there's something to both sides. All the protocols, this is the jungle that Blaine talked about this morning. This is where I live. This is just a tiny bit. Rabble, I don't know if he's here, he has a slide with like 50 of them, like in 10-point font, 3 columns. There's a ton out there. There are a few big ones, there are a bunch of small ones. But there's a lot of things people have tried, so we can learn from all of these. So today I'm going to take us through a whirlwind tour of 6 of them: email, web, specifically IndieWeb, which adds web mention and some micro formats to let you reply, repost between websites. ActivityPub, ATproto, Noster, and Farcaster. There are more. I've learned about some more. I've done a few deep dives. I'm excited to do even more deep dives, but I got 15 minutes. For each of these protocols, there's someone here who knows way more about it than me. So tell me at the end. I'm going to get something wrong. There will be something in here that pisses each one of you off. I apologize. Forgive me. I got a sack for all the complaints, so please bring them up. So, without further ado, when are these things? So obviously email and web are old. Email started in the 60s. Web started late 80s, was it? 80s. ActivityPub, depending on how you count it, it's got this lineage from OStatus and even Atom through, but that was, ActivityPub itself, that lineage was before 2010. Blue Sky 2019 was the org, and maybe you say 2022 was the protocol. Noster, Farcaster 2022 was the protocol. So we got old, new, in between. Let's jump in. Architecture, you've heard this already today from a number of people, from Paul, from Dan, others, so you're going to hear echoes here. So web is P2P, IndieWeb at least is P2P between web servers. Federated is email and ActivityPub. You are a user on a server, you belong to that server. Noster and Farcaster they have servers, but they're interchangeable. These relays that you can talk to any relay, and they kind of trade information, they kind of don't, but it doesn't matter which relay you use to a degree. ATproto likes federation, likes relays, said por qué no los dos. This will be a pattern. ATproto kind of sees all the techniques and says, oh, they're great, let's use them all. Which, there's something to it. Data transfer. If it's decentralized, how do all the parts send data back and forth? There are 2 big paradigms here: message passing and structured data synchronization. Email, ActivityPub, Noster, I would argue, are message passing. A lot of these definitions are fuzzy. Noster, but it's more message passing. Structured synchronization, definitely ATproto, Farcaster, built into the protocol that the relays in Farcaster talk to each other. IndieWeb is kind of both by virtue of it using thin pings. It sends messages, but it doesn't send the content. It says, ask me for the content. So it kind of does both. Identity. I've heard a lot about identity. There is location-based identity, so DNS is email, ActivityPub, web. Noster is key pairs, nothing that remotely smells centralized, so let me generate my key pair offline here, and you generate yours, and that's our identities. Very decentralized, But if you forget your password, you SOL. It's not so great. Farcaster is blockchain. AtProto again, in the intersection, it's got the key pair based, it's got the DNS based. By virtue of doing DIDs, maybe one day it'll use blockchain too. Who knows, or at least support it. But yeah. Object identity. So yeah, email message IDs. It's your domain, your SMTP server's domain plus something you generate. Lots of URIs, web and ActivityPub IDs are all URIs. Lots of content addressing. Nostr and Farcaster use hashes. And then AtProto in the middle doing all the things, or a couple of the things at least. I should go back and say, yeah, so here it's specifically at URIs and SIDs, which are hashes. And so depending on what you're doing, you're going to point to one or both. One or the other or both, yeah. Data model, I got nothing for you. Everyone does their own thing. Like, in the team's words, this is our novel version of NIH syndrome. But it's not AtProto alone doing their own thing. Everyone does their own thing. I mean, email is, what was it, RFC 2822, web's HTML, ActivityPub, at least that's with that serialization, but still, there's very little coherence on data model, so primitive types, like IPLD and AtProto, or on schemas, despite RDF. Serialization, we at least have some coherence. Still a lot of them doing their own thing, text, HTML, protobuf. But there is a lot of JSON, AtProto, ActivityPub, Nostr. I'm missing the DAG CBOR thing here, which counts. Samir asked about car files. That's very serialization, but even when I tried to capture all the things AtProto does, it's doing more things I didn't capture, so it's all the things. Transports, some more coherence, SMTP, yeah. HTTP, a lot of them, or at least, yeah, web, ActivityPub. Nostr is WebSocket. AtProto, ¿por qué no los dos? And then, gRPC and libp2p, God love them. I love both of those. I mean, not the most popular choices, but yeah, they work. Where do semantics live? So there's business is the wrong word, but there is business logic to this. Who does the business logic, or where does the business logic? If you, connecting replies, applying reposts, that's logic you have to run somewhere. Lots of them need this or do this on both server and client. Email, web, ActivityPub, AtProto. Oddly, the Nostr and Farcaster usually are doing the exact same thing. Here, they're pretty split. This is not perfect, but Farcaster, it's largely on the server side. Nostr, it's very on the client side. Monetization, getting a little less technical here. Again, very little coherence. Email, is spam the business model? I don't know, something. Web, you pay for hosting. Fediverse hates money in all forms, as far as I can tell. So you don't pay for hosting. You generously give money of yourself to your host, but we would never call it paying for hosting. AtProto. Has anyone seen the AtProto business model? Can you check under your chair, see if you find the business model? It's not t-shirts. It is maybe t-shirts. It's definitely not ads. It's almost certainly not ads. It's probably not ads. Probably not ads. Nostr and Farcaster are the two here who have a coherent story for payments at least, and maybe business model, microtransactions. So Nostr does Zaps, which are Lightning on Bitcoin. Farcaster does Ethereum and what else? USDC. So yeah. Governance. A few commonalities here. There are standards bodies, so email's IETF. AtProto is probably heading toward IETF, hopefully. And Brian, near and dear to my heart. Web and ActivityPub are W3C. Nostr and Farcaster are interesting. They're very community, emergent to a fault. Anyone can add something in, and then some people implement it, some people don't, and so you have this, to Dan's word, you have this tyranny of this unstructuredness, I think, in the standards themselves, which is trade-offs, Not all bad, but not all good. Okay, so what are some trends we've seen here over time? We take the very long history view. Everyone does this back in the telegraph days, and I'm not going quite that far. But you go back a while, you look at mainframes and time sharing. They're centralized. You look at the early commercial internet services, not ARPANET, but AOL, Prodigy, CompuServe, centralized. You start moving ahead, like email was clearly federated, ActivityPub is federated, the other direction was P2P, web, and a bunch of these smaller protocols, SSB, famously. But we have now maybe converging on a couple things. Key things here are key pairs for identity, not solely, but key pairs for identity are pretty common in a bunch of these places. And relays as servers, these aggregators and interchange points that don't own users, but do a lot of the kind of heavy lifting to get stuff between people. This is AtProto, Nostr, Farcaster. This is the end-to-end principle. You heard Peter talk about this earlier today. He compared it to kind of a non-technical idea, but technically, you look at key pairs and relays, those kind of embody smarts at the end points and dumb pipes. So the end-to-end principle is like back in the IETF networking days. This is, you make the network largely dumb pipes, you implement all the TCP, congestion control, guaranteed delivery at the endpoints. And so I think we're seeing that in a lot of ways in these protocols too. Okay, so let's look at a lot of these endpoints. Where are these different protocols like heading toward currently? A lot of key pairs, a lot of relays. DNS for handles, this is AtProto, Nostr, among others. Content addressing, microtransactions, maybe community governance, I don't know, WebSocket. So if we kind of Frankenstein these all together and say, like, if we had a protocol that did all these, what would it be? At the first AtProto conference, I'm proud to announce to you that, drum roll, that protocol looks a lot like, wait, I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. Let me see if I can figure this out. Okay. If we put it all together, drum roll, we get AtProto almost. Not quite, but almost. It's doing most of these things. The governance, probably, well, I don't know, it's different, maybe better than community. Microtransactions, not yet. Yeah, maybe we'll get there. But interestingly, yeah, like, I don't hang out a lot on Nostr. We'll see, but it's doing seemingly all of these kind of endpoint trends right now. But this is not the end of history. We're going to keep going and keep figuring out new ways to do things. But it's an interesting one to look at. I am not, I didn't come up with this idea. Gordon Brander, who made the subconscious and noosphere protocols, kind of noted this, but he's seeing some convergence, which is cool. If you hate this idea of Nostr, as a reminder, my name is Paul Frazee, PFRAZEE.com. Please at me. As penance for getting up here at the AtProto conference and telling you Nostr is so great, I have a public apology to make. Way back in the day, this was 2021, the dinosaur era of Blue Sky. Before they put out ADX, AtProto, or anything else, they did a contest. Hey, we're doing this decentralized thing. We'd love to hear ideas. If you could connect your social profiles in a decentralized way that was provable, how would you do it? So I said, I've been hanging out with IndieWeb for a while. We kind of do this. I will put together an IndieWeb entry. A couple other people did too. I figured, it's not new, but we got this solved. I sent it in. Some other people won. I got an honorable mention, which was really nice. But at this point in time, looking at what I had seen from the Blue Sky team, their paper they put out on a bunch of different protocols, where they came from, and what they had talked about, I figured they were kind of on the blockchain, DNS is not decentralized enough model, and so web, they would say, oh no. A friend of mine, Brett Slatkin, who was involved in Blue Sky early on, said, hey, what happened? Why didn't they like it? Do they hate DNS? And me assuming a bunch of things, and at Twitter, 2021, what do? You go shoot your mouth off. And I said, yeah, they hate DNS. Turns out they kind of like DNS. Who knew? So, up here in front of everyone, I would like to say to the Blue Sky team, Jay, I humbly apologize for maligning your good name and saying you hated DNS. I was wrong. I have never been so happy to be wrong. If you want to look at more of the protocol comparison stuff, it's in the Bridgie Fed docs. So great to be here. This is going to be a blast. Have a great show. Thank you.